Coffee Talk with Coach K. Here we are in Europe time, 17 o'clock, all the way over in Berkeley, California, close to San Fran at 8 a.m. So it's real coffee talk time. I am so excited to have Duncan on our coffee talk today. I met him just a short time ago, and we agree on a lot of things. We have some similarities here, and he has a special mission in this world, and he's done so much, and he has such a powerful story. I thought people have got to get a taste of this. Beautiful, everybody. I would love you to meet Duncan Cheung here from San Francisco. And we are going to dive into what really is success. And yeah, like the whole chasing success, right? Duncan is a leader. He is a performance coach and a leadership coach. And he's got a whole bunch of projects on the go. And I'm going to let him really get into that.
Yeah. Hi,
Show us
Karen.
you got coffee, because this is not true until you're holding that coffee. There we go, everybody. Yes.
Well, thank you, Carrie, for having me on and for accommodating my schedule here. This is truly coffee time for me, so this feels authentic. And thank you for all the nice things you said earlier. It takes one to know one. I think all the nice things you said about me is true for you as well. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, my brother.
Yeah, I just want to open with a quick disclaimer. I don't know much. But I'd love to have a conversation and learn. My perspective is informed by what I've learned from life so far. And I'm still learning, and it's just such a fun journey. So I think what I might do is just to give a little introduction about me, so that your audience would also start to get to know me. And then I'd love this to be more of a conversation for us to chat, for us to learn from one another. How's that sound?
We're going to be bouncing back and forth on the top of adventure and how you can apply that to life. We have more people joining us here on Zoom. It is a party. But Duncan, let's hear you. Take over.
Oh, I see friendly faces.
Look at
Hello. Hi, Afshin. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Virginia.
So
this is wonderful.
Duncan, take it away and let us know what
Sure. Yeah. So, and I love this topic. I think success is an interesting topic because everyone seems to be pursuing success, but I haven't, and I don't feel like I'm missing out. Unfortunately, what I've been guided by over the last decade or so has been fairly consistent and fairly simple. And that's my North Star. My North Star is to simply go and cultivate fulfillment with and for all beings. And right now, I do that in three ways. I make a living elsewhere as a management consultant, a strategy consultant, as a marketer. But the currency that I prefer is fulfillment rather than money. And the way I pursue fulfillment is three things. One, creating learning experiences with people in the wilderness. And by exploring that external wilderness in the mountains, deep in the forest, up in high peaks, I find that there is it's an invitation for us to explore our inner wilderness. And that is vast. Both are vast. I don't know which one is bigger, but it's equally interesting to explore. And so for that second bit, that exploration of our inner wilderness, I think the instrument, at least for me, to explore that is through coaching. And so I've been helping people explore their inner wildernesses and understand their truer nature so they can get back to it. Because I can't better people. I don't know how to do that. But what I can help people do is to take a journey back to their truer selves so they can live a more fulfilling life. So that's the second bit. Now, if you put the first and second bit together, right, you got the understanding of our surrounding and our wilderness, and you've got the understanding of our inner self. You put them together, And I find myself being surrounded by people. Many of them are actually on this call right now.
I love it. I love
All
it.
those folks, they understand something about life. And when we put this group of people who have something to say but nothing to prove and a propensity to do good, then we have a community that is aimed toward goodness and love. And that is among the most fulfilling thing that I get to do. And so when I get those three things put together, I feel like I am living toward my North Star. And every step of the way feels like there's a pep to it. So that's a bit about me.
There's nothing more fulfilling when you have that pull to do something
Hmm.
and you follow it. And we've got something similar going on here.
Yeah, yeah.
And with my adventure tours that I've been doing for a number of years, what I've discovered is my adventure tours turned into now coaching.
Hmm.
Because I noticed just through my own growth, sorry, I'm letting there's more people coming in.
Yeah.
Just through my own personal growth, I would always be pulled to the mountains for my own healing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
On my own, whether it was Nepal, Austria, so in the Swiss Alps, didn't matter. I was always pulled to go to the mountains as I was going through my own wild inner terrain, right?
Yeah.
And there was something there that where I could automatically connect to the truth, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't the trainer. I wasn't the wife at home. I was just my pure essence,
Yeah.
right? I'm just going to make sure you guys are muted when you're coming in. Um, and I thought as I was growing, as I was opening up, coming to the mountains, throughout that, my own journey,
Yeah.
I knew I got to bring people here to show them this.
Yeah.
Now, not necessarily the exact same places I were, but there's something in this. There's something powerful in this, right? And it's more about unlearning than it is learning more. So,
That's insightful, Carrie. So when you talked about your essence, I
yeah.
see you light up a little bit. What's that light within the essence? What's shining the brightest? What did you notice?
Well, I mean, the words that come to mind are pure. When you're in the mountains, you're just feet on the ground. So that like the physical part of feet on the ground.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I was on my own, but it's also you're meeting new people. You're
Hmm.
learning to be on your own because if you can't really be on your own, it's hard to be with another person,
Yeah.
truly. So you have to have time on your own to grow. You truly do. But there's something else, there's another light guiding you. And even though there's moments of clarity and moments of connecting to where you want to go next,
Hmm.
it's a matter of letting go. It's unlearning the stuff that was closing off my heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I believe over the years we learn things that aren't ours. We take on beliefs that aren't ours. We take on these patterns that aren't ours until we're locked in it like a box. That's why my coaching's called out of the box. And we're living in a box that actually we've made, but under these rules that actually aren't ours, right? And that's where I was. And it was my burnt outness that was a gift to pull me out of it and send me to the mountains to get that. So I was unlearning in it's almost like it's a relief. It's literally a breath of fresh air. There's like an opening. And
Yeah.
in the opening, you connect with the channel that's always there. You connect with the stream that's always there. And I think that's what I see in the other people that are guests now, as you have your um, clients and climbers on here too. Now I get to see through the eyes of them. And that's 10 times better than my own experience is to
Mm.
see people, their things unfolding for them that they don't even expect to unfold. when they're in the mountains. The mountains do, or adventure, not just the mountains, but nature does its own thing on you. And we just hold the space is what and yeah. So how do you see it unfold for you in your
Yeah, so
work group?
that's interesting. I hear a number of things there. One is the clarity. Once you remove the conditioning or the boxiness, as you call it, we see the truer
Boxing, yeah.
connection. We understand what we're driven by, and we regain the ability to work on ourselves. Those are things that I heard from what you just said. I think those ring true to me. And what I'd say is it's interesting because when you invited me to this and I posted this on the social media, a friend of mine who I've lost touch with, and she's an old friend of 20 years, and she here I'll read it to you. She said, "When I read your post, I bursted into tears because I feel that I have failed." And then it goes on in Chinese, but the message that I'm hearing from her is, I asked her to elaborate, and she said, I've been pursuing success, and now I feel like I've been cheated, because she's a very successful marketer, based in another country, and recently she had some issues at work, and she thought that what she was pursuing was she poured her own whole life into her work, and because work isn't giving her the validation or success that she's looking for, now all of a sudden her world crumbled. And a few years ago she became a mother, and so she set out the goal to be a successful mother, and she wants to be the best mother there is. And now there's something happening with her family as well, and it's not where she quite wants it to be. And again, there's this sense of failure.
Hmm.
And so that's one reason why I think pursuing success, it leads to these emotional roller coasters. It obscures what we're really after because it's a binary state. You're either successful or you're on your way to it or you failed, right? And it's like, would I want to live my life hanging by a thread thinking, uh-oh, if I'm not successful, then I have failed? No, no. I want every step on my journey to feel that I am stepping on solid ground. I feel resilient. I feel that even if I fail at this one thing, I didn't fail in life. And therefore, I think by pointing our compasses toward success, we're pointing toward emptiness. And we're pointing toward something that doesn't, it's a temporary state and it's not very stable. So why don't we just cut to the chase? We cut to the chase by going after what is it that we're after? We're after, well, for me, I'm after a sense of belonging. I want to belong to my community, like everyone here, including you, Carrie, who's a new member of my community. I want to pursue fulfillment, and I want to feel like my actions, my thoughts, my emotions, they bring me fulfillment, and that my community is feeling fulfilled.
Mhm.
So that's more direct and more specific. And I like direct and specific. I don't like obscurity. And I don't like things that it's unstable.
Yeah, because like when we say success in what? Because everyone defines success differently, right? And there might be people that are financially successful. There might be people that are successful in raising a family, right? It's all in our own version of what success is, right? Successful in a sport, but perhaps in something else, they feel they were a failure, right? So success is so personal.
Yeah.
And it's such a personal thing. And what may be successful to me may absolutely not fit in that realm of someone else. And then when I look at a long list of things, like of what I want to,
Hmm.
like if someone says, what do you really want? Then I might say, okay, well, I want to earn this much. I want to help this many people. I want to get this message out. I want to climb Aconcagua. I want to do all these different things. And then the question is, well, why? Because I feel when I do all those things, I'm a success. But I believe that when we do all these, we're actually just looking for a feeling, to experience a feeling. When I think when I do all those things, I'm going to feel a certain way,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
We can
Exactly. So
actually
I
have that.
take that a step further, Carrie. Like
Yeah.
when you say, okay, I'm going to go pursue, I want a successful career. What does that mean? Can we get more specific with that? Is it that you want to be recognized at work? Is it that you want a certain amount of financial freedom? Is
Yeah.
it to build wealth? Any number of people here can tell you that, yeah, I'm not pursuing money for money's sake. I want something. Well, what is that something? Let's pursue that instead.
Yeah.
And maybe money is a path to it, but it's not the only path to it. And so by focusing singularly on success, we focus too much on the destination and not enough on the journey. And I argue that in order for us to live a fulfilling life or for us to live the life that we want to live, that we don't have to wait for that state of success to happen, that to reach that destination that we want. We get to celebrate now, we get to be in the present, and we get to honor the future and the present and what we did in the past. It's a much more full spectrum way to live. And yeah, it comes with all kinds of suffering. It comes with all kinds of discomfort. But hey, that's the journey. You don't get to go to the top of the mountain without hiking it.
I
And
love the analogy of like we
yeah.
both have the analogy of the mountains, because when I take people on a 10-day tour, for example, there's the meetup in the beginning, there's the uncomfort, you don't know the people, and then you become family within a couple of days.
Oh yeah.
And then there's this phase. And usually about day 2, day 3, people are suffering because they dive right into the long days and the hard climbs just to get them, just to dive them. They go through that period of resistance, that period of, okay, I'm really excited and I'm choosing this, although they've hit a little bit of a wall, right? And then there's that coming out of that, and then there's the high. But the real, I mean, a lot of people hear this like crazy. The juice is in the journey. We all
Sure.
know that.
Yeah.
And everyone hears that, but it's so true. It's all of that stuff to the peak. Like it's the conversations
Yeah.
along the way. It's the people
Yeah.
sitting on the bench and crying because they're sharing the story of the brother that they lost
Yeah.
many years ago that they haven't actually shared
Yeah.
intimately with someone. The
Yeah.
intimacy that comes out on the mountain is what moves me. It
Yeah.
takes, it brings like a tough jock man into back to his little boy, truly. And it brings everybody connected. Doesn't,
Mm.
the titles are whisked away in the wind. The titles, whether it's doctor or teacher or whatever, and everyone sort of becomes one. It becomes sort of like, sometimes to me it's like a sitcom. Everyone
Yeah.
plays a different character, right? But what happens along the way in each step, right? Everyone lifting each other up, supporting each other.
Yeah.
And it doesn't become about getting to the peak, really.
No.
And sometimes we've even stopped before the peak because everyone decided, no, the weather's too bad. We don't need to. It's not about this. I'm good. And they turn around and come back, and because they've connected and they realize, it's not, they've reached their peak. along the way.
Yeah.
And the conversations at the table in the mountain huts,
That
and
counts. Yeah.
the peaks and the valleys, that's all, that's where it is. And that's the stuff you remember years later,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
relate it to
Absolutely.
coaching, you relate it to life. It's to me, when I sit down here with a client and coach them through a few months, it's the similarities of climbing a mountain over 10 are so like bang on. It's unbelievable. It's everything that step that happens and the celebrations along the way. That's the big thing too. Celebrating.
I this story is poignant because it reminds me of another. Can I share a story about
Please,
actually
we
about
love
one
stories.
of our audience members here actually. Um, two stories actually. Two both of them are folks that I've had the privilege to hike with. And I think both of them are here in our conversation. So I'm not going to name names to protect their privacy, but first, this gentleman who's a very successful, accomplished, well recognized attorney with a heart of gold, helped the U.S. administration litigate and take help companies become more responsible in their actions toward the environment. And we went on a hike once, and I took a photo of them halfway up a trailless peak. We're halfway up. Everyone's just huffing and puffing. And so I stopped in the middle and I waited for them to catch up. And when they got together, I asked, how's everyone feeling? And I was expecting a physiological response. Oh, I have a hot spot down there, I got blister here, my back hurts, this pack is too heavy, etc., etc. But no, this gentleman paused, took off his sunglasses, and he took a big sigh out. And he said, you know, I spent my whole life building a career, building a family. And I love both of that. I find that to be fulfilling. And this moment, right here, you know, I'm in my mid 60s, right here in the wilderness and with you guys, with everything here. This is what I wanted. And he just bursted into tears. He just started crying. And we held him. We just held him. It was a moment of humanity that I witnessed, that he was courageous enough to be vulnerable, that he was in a moment, in his peak moment. And that is fulfillment for him and for everyone around. And now you get to share it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I, in that story, because I remember you telling me that before, and it's not like that whole career that he was had the success, there was anything wrong or a wrong decision in that. That made his moment on the mountain that much greater, right? As he went through all those years and that learning of, this is what it is.
Right.
It's the contrast
Yeah.
brings the greatest moment of, right. If he didn't have that contrast of like thinking this was success and it, you know what I mean? The career and all that. And then he gets there to the simplest moment in life,
Yeah.
people sweating in nature. Like it's the contrast that kind of gives that release of resistance and tears
It's all the micro moments in his
yeah,
journey that he's recognizing. He's not dismissing any of it. I
yeah.
don't want to put words in his mouth, but the way I felt was that he's not dismissing any piece of his life. And none of us need to. If we've been pursuing success, good. And now we get to get more specific.
Mhm.
And that's what I saw in him, that he didn't dismiss any part of his past. He just allowed that to amount to something that he gets to enjoy for the rest of his days. And it's not about a singular, unstable moment of success. It's about the whole breadcrumb. It's the entire breadcrumb trail.
Yeah. And when you're on the mountain, you physically can see wider and brighter and more, but you actually can also get a glimpse of your life a little
Yeah.
better and get a
Yeah.
glimpse of that, you get knowing that it's all perfect the way it was.
Yeah.
And that little clarity that knows, okay, now I'm going in the right direction. Right.
Right. And yes, there's that. And there's also a recognition of the past. I want to emphasize this point. I'm going to pull in another story also by someone that I deeply respect and have hiked with, and is also in our audience here. This person works so incredibly hard, and has lost her partner, and it's a really poignant story. And she has 3 kids, and we went hiking together. It's not something that she got to do after her partner passed. And halfway up the mountain, before we get to where we wanted to go to, she paused and she said, I can't go on. I can't do it. And I placed my hand on her shoulder, and I immediately recognized it wasn't about the physical aspect. There's something inside. It's so I said to her, I said, this is not physical, isn't it? This is something inside. And on that trip, I heard her story about how much she misses her partner, and how that was an activity they shared,
Mm.
and she missed him a lot. And that acknowledgement of the past and the grieving process, right? Just by climbing, just by trying to get somewhere, allows you to witness what you've gone through.
Mm. Yeah.
And to this day, I still remember the the humanity in that. And now we get to, this is not a cheap story to throw around. There's humanity in it, and we get to hold this story, and we get to hold the person, and move forward together.
Yeah. I mean, those moments you can't put a price on, and you don't forget them, right? And they're in the simplicity of climbing, putting one foot in front of the other, things unfold, and there's grace in there.
Yeah.
There's a grace for yourself, right? Allowing to what's present for you to actually be there,
Yeah.
not needing to push anything down. It's allowing it to just, like you said, vulnerable, right?
Right.
That's a power. I mean, there's so many powerful stories, and that's
Yeah.
wonderful that these stories that they're on here with us today.
Yeah.
I have just a short story of
Yeah.
um, over 10 years, there's many of them, but just the most recent one on a yoga hiking tour in the Dolomites in Italy. There's a woman, she's more into yoga, but less into hiking. And so the hiking I knew would be a bit of a challenge, but I knew she could do it. And she confided in me. She said, "Can I really do this, Kara?" I said, "I know you can." And I watched her the first couple of days. She had a little issue with heights, but the first couple of days I watched her and realized, no, she can handle the last couple of days. And when we're getting to the last part of the climb, it was probably about 1,300 meters we had to climb in vertical ascent that day, but it was also a little rocky, and you had to hold on to a few
Mhm.
rope type things, but it's very doable. And So she started to have a breakdown, like a panic attack, and quite a big one. And in those moments, I've seen those moments quite a bit. And the mind's going over, the mind is going overboard, and it's setting her up to not be able to accomplish it. So I let her decide on her own if she wants to move forward. We went just a little other direction.
Yeah.
And eventually, step by step, we got to the top. And she had sort of massive, like really, it was a massive fear for her. And we got to the top. And then on the way down, she'd say, I didn't think she liked me anymore. She says, I'm never doing this again. This is the, like, how could you bring me in this, like, never doing this again. And so anyhow, we all got back down, and she was leaving that day, but we were still really nice. She was on talking terms. And a couple of days later, I got the biggest thank you.
Yeah.
And not just a couple of days later. Yes. Then about a month or two later, or a few months later, she wrote a story. She wrote a whole blog on her experience, and she posted at her work on how life transforming this experience. And she needed that for some reason, right? And we're just there guiding and holding them up high. And she didn't want to go into that experience. And part of me thought I should have brought her down. But another part of me said, bring her up. Right? And then she's the one that wants to do it the most again. The ones that you think with the experience wouldn't want to do it again are the ones that do want to do it 10 times, because their lesson is for them. And it unfolds not just on the day, but on the days after.
Yes.
What they realize. And her lesson and her epiphany is her thing. What she got. That's her gift. That's what's been given to her. But what you see physically on the outside, is deceiving. Sometimes you don't know the changes that are happening within people as it's going on. And so she's a powerful example of what you think is happening there is not really something bigger going on there, right? Something powerful and life-changing for this woman.
It's interesting what you described about this friend of yours. Initially, you said that her experience was like, well, why did you bring me here? Kicking and screaming. It's akin to a child throwing a temper tantrum, but only that we're grown up somewhere on the mountains and we got to be responsible for our own safety. But the situation, the emotions are similar here.
Yeah.
But what are we fighting? We're not fighting you. You're the guide. You've done her no harm. Yes, you brought her on the trip, but it's her journey.
Yeah.
And what she's fighting is the discomfort within herself. And if we confuse the fight that's within her and take it personally, I don't think we'd be very successful or very nurturing guides.
Yes.
And when she recognized that a few days later and allowed herself to feel in the journey, the gratitude that came up, yes, part of it is for you. But a big part of it is also a recognition of herself, that she overcame that discomfort, that she took something from it and she learned from it.
Yeah.
And all of it, all these, back to your earlier point about the feeling, right? I call it an emotional endpoint. What is the emotional endpoint that we're chasing after rather than success? Is it a feeling of belonging? Is it a feeling of competence? Is it a feeling that we get to do something? We have the privilege of choice. We get to choose how we live our lives. And we recognize that not everyone has that privilege. And that is a lesson for me. I learned that from just this story, which is that, yeah, a lot of that journey, she can kick and scream, and it's about you. It's
Yeah.
then now it's not about you. No, no, no. It's here. It's all here. And when we, as guides or as companions, or as Sherpas, as friends, as family members, when we get to just witness and be with the people we are with, and not take their suffering or their jabs as a personal attack, then we get to lift each other up. Then we get to
Yeah.
be in each other's journeys without walking it for them or allowing them to walk ours. So the lesson here for me is holding people as they are and honoring their journey, whether they're in discomfort or in the greatest joy in their lives. Helping them witness that, helping them explore that. That brings us closer together. And the first step is to be courageous enough to be vulnerable with them, because in vulnerability, we bond.
Yeah. And there's always learning for us in it and for them. And just to
There's
have
no us
that,
and them. It's just us.
it's just us. Yes, it's just us. There's no us and them, but is that you're right, not taking it personally. And, and to be able to have that detachment of this is their journey. We're in this together. I'm not taking this against me, right? And so in the beginning, that took a little bit for me to have that distance, but I feel like it's grounded in me more.
Yeah.
But before I wanted to open up here to any questions to anybody on Facebook or anybody here on Zoom. If you have any questions for Duncan, now's the time, because we got about like 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes tops here. So I'd love to invite anybody maybe that's traveled with Duncan or trekked with Duncan, if you have any questions to throw his way, or just to any of us, please land them in. You can come out and say them live, or you can type them in the chat.
Oh, V. Worked with Duncan. Duncan, how did you decide, oh, this was going to be your path? In many ways, I'm still making that decision every day. It's a continuous process for me. I think I listen to what drives me, what makes me get up every Monday morning, is to really go and cultivate fulfillment. And yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I've made a decision. I think I just have been on this path. And I keep deciding, I keep choosing to do it because it's so true to who I am. If I ask myself the honest questions, why am I waking up today? Why am I working? Why am I doing the why? The 5 layers of why, right? It's and every day it points to what I'm doing. And if I get to have a day like this, then I've lived. Then I've lived that day. And some of you know, I used to suffer from depression and anxiety, very serious depression and anxiety. And what I've learned from that experience, in addition to a bunch of really great coping mechanisms, is that there are certain things that we're attuned to. And for me, it's the wilderness, it's the mountains. And when I get to be in it and with it, the truth just comes at me. And maybe Carrie, you can relate to that as well. There's a truth that is beyond just us. And I'm not talking about anything religious or anything sort of spiritual here. And it's okay if others do. But for me, the truth is just that I get to be connected with nature and with myself and with my community. And anything in service of that, anything that brings joy and fulfillment for all of the above, I do. And if I get to do that, then it informs my decision again. So it's not like I've decided to do this now and then I'm going to stick with it because I'm stubborn. I am. And because I'm committed. I am. But the commitment is renewed every day. It's not a vow that you take at age 25 and then you just live. No, I do that every day. Just like my business plan. I write my business plan out on my whiteboard here every morning and I scratch it out. And then over time, there's something that repeats, and that I don't need to trust the moment of truth in me. I get to trust the process of truth, the process of wisdom over time that gets to visit me. I don't know if that answers your question, V, but at least that's my version of it. I'll think more on it and I'll get back to you.
Amazing. Amazing. Man, we can talk forever on this one. I'm going to ask about one more question if anybody else has another question for Duncan. And as people are typing it in the chat there, yeah, it's there's no words to describe the mountains. It's an overtime thing. You just, like you said about your work, you just get up, you keep getting pulled there, and it just feels good. And by feeling, you're guided to keep coming back. There's something truthful about this. There's something truthful. I'm going to keep coming back, keep coming back. Then I have mountains all over my house posted, log cabins, because there's something in it that speaks.
So yes, that reminds me. I used to be entirely driven by my head, the intellect. Society rewards that. You're a smart guy. You're full of ideas, and you do things, right? You perform. But since having gone through depression and all of that, what I've realized is I have suppressed another really important metric, another important signal for me, and those are the emotions. And if I don't acknowledge my being, then I am just human doing. I don't get to be human being. But really we are both. We need to be both. And allowing those emotional endpoints to play a role in driving our decisions, driving our thoughts and feelings, and not suppressing them, we get to live more wholly. And that is what I've learned is what connects to what you said about what gets us up. It's not just because I have a goal. Yes, have that goal. And how are we feeling about this goal? Is this an embodied feeling within us that tells us, yes, this is the path, and the path itself toward the goal is also worthy? And I'll leave you with one thought here. It reminds me of a trip I did with a very accomplished mountaineer friend of mine, Joe. And we were hiking in New York, upstate New York, going through 3 peaks, some of the tallest peaks in New York, which is not that tall, but it's undulating and it's difficult. Mm-hmm. He carried this big, giant pack, and he's seen everything. He climbed every major mountain out there, has lost people in his expedition teams, so he knows suffering, he knows loss. Almost to the top of this peak. We were bushwhacking the whole day, tired. He turned around and he said to me, he said, Duncan, summiting is optional, returning isn't. And I learned something from that talk, from that moment, that the summit isn't the goal. Success isn't the goal. Going back home, having the life that we have to tell our stories, to connect with people, that's the process, and we go after the process. And that's not optional. The goal is optional. We get to choose whether we want to go to that peak. We get to choose which peak. but the process is something that we get to relish and revel in every moment.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, there's another question in there. Can you read that? Oh, what's been your biggest learning on this path journey? You went from corporate. Can you see that, Duncan?
Oh yeah, I see, I see. Right, biggest learning from this path went from corporate America to cultivating fulfillment. I never left corporate America. I'm still with corporate America. I'm still with. I'd like to be with everybody. My biggest learning is inclusion is important. Belonging over belongings, and focus on what is the essence of what we're going after. Get specific. Get specific. That sounds like a bunch of cliche, and it's true for me. Cliches are cliches for a reason, but I believe that inclusivity, whether it's about race, belief systems, life experiences, economic statuses, whatever metric you want to measure inclusion, bring it all in. All of that constitutes humanity. If we take out suffering, if we take out discomfort, if we take out the climb, the mountain, the peak, the valleys, they are just there. And we make meaning by acknowledging the totality of who we are, including the ugly bits.
The whole, that's where the whole, yes. Yeah. I just got a waft, and it's going to the mountains is also bringing you to accept the whole of you. The dark and the light and the, is seeing it as the big raw whole. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And I love what you said about belonging compared to belongings. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And Joanne has a question on, if you had one recommendation for someone who wants to start being every day instead of doing, how would you start? Ah, that's an interesting question. And I think you know the answer intuitively, Joanne. I think you do. Yeah, I think all of us do.
Yeah. We all have our
Being
own inner
the,
compass. Yeah.
the doing is what we tend to describe ourselves at a dinner party. Like, oh, I'm a father, I'm a corporate exec, I'm a this and I'm a that. It's the roles and the services and the values that we offer to society, because that's liked. That's what people want. But the being, okay, not the doing, the being is what our close friends describe us at our funerals. That's the being. How would you want your friend to describe you at your funeral? Well, what kind of obituary would they write about you? They're not going to say that, oh, he excelled at Excel sheets. No, they're acknowledging your being. He walks into a room, or she walks into a room and lights up the whole room with her smile like a chandelier. And oh, what's in that? What emanates from that? Oh, because she's so warm and she's so kind, and she just prances around. It doesn't matter what the external circumstances are. Oh, but there's a sadness about her. What is it? Oh, because she lost somebody. Tell me about that suffering, right? That is the being. That is our human experience. And that's what we get to tap into the more we remove distractions. And one good way to remove distractions is to be in nature. That's why I do this whole minimalist backpacking thing, because it's about getting rid of distractions so we can get real and get specific with what we actually want. And that's not just what we carry and all the baggage that we carry on our backs. right? It's also a metaphor for what we carry in our heads. What are the fears? What are the insecurities? What do we carry with us? And what do we get to let go? So that's my recommendation is tap into that set of emotional endpoints. How would people describe you? How would you want people to describe you at your funeral? And then use those as signals. Use those as emotional endpoints to come up with your values and what is it that you're after. And if you need help, Carrie can help, I can help, you know, whatever it is, just we're here to help.
You
It's
know
such
what, Duncan, I'm going to invite you on for a part 2. Would you agree to that?
you're getting me on camera. Geez. Sure. Yes. Yes. But let's look at schedules. But this has
Yeah.
been such a joy. I'm sorry for
Yes,
monologuing.
I do have to go. I have to teach a yoga class on this Zoom. So we're going to have to close this down. I'd love to have you answer more questions, but you're amazing. You're incredible. Thank you for all your insight, your wisdom, your experience that you're bringing to the table, your heart, your passion. I know it's bleeding through, the internet here to everybody else who's listening. And we'll definitely do a part 2 on this.
No,
So
it
if
takes
you
one
guys
to
want
know
part
one.
2, put your hands up. Give me a fancy shake. And yeah.
It takes one to know one.
Beautiful.
Thank you for being you. And I acknowledge all of those nice things that you said is you're looking at a mirror.
Yee, Joanne. Oh, looking in a mirror. That's awesome. Everybody, it's been a pleasure. And I'm going to go back and listen to this again. But now it's yoga time, my friends. So everybody have a great night. And then be on the lookout for part 2.
All right. Take care. Thank you for having me on, Carrie. Thank you for everyone for joining.
Thanks, Duncan. Thanks, everybody. Bye.